College Football Hall of Fame quarterback, Super Bowl champion Joe Theismann joins us on 365 Sports with Paul Craig. I'm David Smoke. Joe, thank you very much, man. As a fan, you played at Notre Dame, you played with Washington, seeing the Fighting Irish where they are, and also the Commanders playing the way they are. Is kind of hog heaven for you right now?
Yeah, I'm having a heck of a week. I really am. I mean, what I've been able to enjoy and what I've been able to see is just, it's so gratifying to see Washington back where they haven't been in a couple of decades. And of course, Notre Dame making the run that they have it's just been magical. I mean, you know, a little bit of luck of the Irish in a couple of games, people not hitting open people and guys making plays. And it's just one thing after another. Every one of these games, both of these teams have created nail biters. I don't have any nails left, to be honest.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Joe, when you were at Notre Dame, it was, and it's kind of funny that these stories are kind of mirroring each other in certain ways. In that when you were at Notre Dame, that was the program. I mean, the elite of the elite, the bluest of the blue bloods, the one everybody knew and watched. And then, you know, the rest of the world, college football changed, and the rest of the world kind of caught up a little bit more, and they haven't won in so long. What is it like to see some of those things come back up that when you were playing at Notre Dame were so familiar of being a national championship contender, being one of the elites, and people being legit scared of you?
I think that it's so gratifying to see the program back where, you know, it was when I was fortunate enough to be able to play. But Marcus Freeman has done just a terrific job of creating a culture. That word comes up so often when you think about the things that he accomplished. And, you know, I was sort of reading some things, and if it wasn't for Jack Swarbrick's vision, you know, Marcus wouldn't be the coach. I mean, he took a chance on a young man, a very young person, and we promoted from within. And all you needed to do, I think Jack had to feel great when he made he obviously made the decision for a reason. But when Marcus was introduced to the team, the way the players literally erupted with cheers, having him be the head coach had to be so gratifying for Jack because, you know, he was sort of going in uncharted territory to a large degree with a very young coach after Brian Kelly had been there for a dozen years, you know, taking them to a lot of wins. And then all of a sudden Marcus comes in, and it's been a great 3 years.
Joe, what have been your impressions or your, I guess, interest level in this expanded playoff and seeing the road? I mean, there's no doubt. I know there was some controversy there in the first round with some blowouts about, you know, seeding and things like that, but there's no doubt like the two best teams are left standing, and they've proven it over the last month with the wins they've had to pick up. But, I mean, what a journey beating a red-hot Indiana team, beating Georgia, I mean, beating Penn State, now the opportunity with Ohio State. Just what have you thought of this and the big change in college football to this expanded postseason?
Well, I don't have a problem with the expanded postseason. I don't think that just because you win a conference, you should get a bye. I've always felt like if you have a better record than somebody else, you should be rewarded because you earned the right to be able to have a bye, even though all the bye teams were out. But that's one thing I think they're going to look at. It's the first year. I think for the first time out of the chute, they did a really, really good job doing the best they can to examine the way things are going to be and the way it's going to go. My biggest problem with the collegiate aspect of things is the portal. I mean, just for an example, the backup quarterback at Penn State couldn't participate in that game. If something happened to the starter, they were down to a third-string quarterback. You know, you go all year, you fight your rear end off with this group of guys, and all of a sudden, oh well, I have to go into the portal if I'm leaving. I think they really need to take a hard look at how long the season really is. You're looking at I mean, Notre Dame's going to play in the Ohio State. They're playing their 16th game.
Mm-hmm.
Well, obviously, you're paying players enough for it to be professional football and professional sports in general in college. But this is a 16-game schedule. It's a long, hard schedule. And I think that there's some things that they can do. I think they have to change the portal to one specific date and get people to stay a little bit more, be able to commit to a university a little bit more. And then if they seek reward someplace else, they can do it. But I think, having the 12-team playoff, it was fun. It was fun watching Notre Dame play Indiana. It was fun watching, Ohio State and Texas go at it. I mean, I love college football. I love everything about it, except that I think it's become more professionalized than anybody ever dreamt it would.
Yeah, they didn't think ahead about, okay, well, what happens if this happens? And, of course, like 8 or 9 new things all came into existence in NCAA athletics at one time. Joe, does Riley Leonard remind you of you in any way?
No.
No.
No. He's a much stronger runner. He's a much bigger person. I've had a chance to be with Riley, and he's let me put it this way. I hope our view of life is very similar. I believe in the Lord. He believes in the Lord. I love Notre Dame. He loves Notre Dame. I never had a chance to play for a national championship, although we felt like we did, even though at that time it was just a question of somebody voting for you or not voting for you. So in that regard, but I threw the ball a bit more with our offense than he did. Certainly, I wasn't going to run over people, and the last thing I'd try to do would be jump over people because I couldn't jump that high, so it wouldn't matter. But he's what's impressive about him, and I believe Mike Denbrock, our offensive coordinator, deserves the credit as well. Riley got hurt against Notre Dame last year when he was at Duke. He had no spring work, no spring practice. Didn't really start practicing till just before the season started. And the quarterback we saw that started against A&M and the quarterback that we saw that started against Penn State are really two very different Riley Leonard. And he's just gotten better and better and better. Mike has a better understanding of what his quarterback can do. He has a better understanding of the offense. We threw for more yards in that game, hard yards against Penn State than we probably had in a while. Notre Dame's built on running the football. Let's face it. That's what they do. They run the football, bottom line. And Riley's a big part of it. I don't think that that's just going to be the only way you can go against Ohio State. They're very dynamic on the offensive side of the ball, and they're very good on the defensive side of the ball. Just like I believe we're very good on the defensive side. And for us, I think that little bit of uncertainty. I don't know if Ohio State really knows what they're going to get from Notre Dame's offense, which I think is good. You keep them off balance a little bit. I think that's a good way to go. But do I see similarities? No, like I say, just our love for Notre Dame and the belief in the Lord. And, other than that, he is a physical specimen. He's a big kid, okay? He's really a big kid.
Well, then I know you're going to say you're exactly like Jaden Daniels, because that was my next.
You've gone from one extreme to the next.
But just when you look at him, and of course everything that's going on around the team right now kind of just starts with the joy of new ownership and how there's a buzz around the organization. But for him to step in this first full year of the ownership and just send a charge into the fan base, what have you seen from him, that gives you hope for his career, the future of the franchise, and everything in Washington?
I love everything about him. I love the young man. The young man's a terrific young man. His athleticism speaks for itself. Everybody in the beginning of the year was concerned. He's lean. He's tight. He's not. He's not Riley Leonard. All right. He's not a big guy where you say, or Josh Allen, who runs a lot as well. But he's wiry and he's tough and he's smart. He has wonderful football intellect for a young guy that hasn't played at this level. Of course, when he transferred from Arizona State and went to LSU, he had Mike Denbrock there, who's at Notre Dame. But so Mike's really been the guy who's had both of those quarterbacks. He's had Riley and also Jaden. As far as looking at him and comparing him, the thing about Jaden to me is you could write down 10 things that you look for in a quarterback. And I wouldn't say a rookie quarterback, just a quarterback. His accuracy, his ability to throw the ball down the field, his athleticism, his football intellect, learning how to protect himself, processing so that you can get plays called where you're not getting 5-yard delay game penalties. We see that more from places like Green Bay and even the Rams because their offense is very verbal, lots of words. And the quarterbacks have to get a lot of things out to be able to relay it. You watch the clock. They're always running down to 1 second before they snap the ball. It doesn't happen in Washington. Cliff Kingsbury, I think, has done a terrific job starting on early with Jaden, just getting the ball out of his hand. Doesn't want to get him hurt, doesn't want to get him hit. I remember Tom Moore, great offensive coordinator, quarterback guru. Tom and I did a camp many years ago, and then in broadcasting, he had Peyton Manning in Indianapolis. And this was Peyton's rookie year. He said, there's 2 things I want to do with Peyton. I want to make sure he doesn't get beat up physically, and I want to make sure he doesn't get beat up mentally. And you see where Peyton is today, or when he went through how he was with the game, one of the best that ever put on a uniform. I think in Jaden's case, because of his ability to run and because of the ability to protect himself, they can threaten people in a lot different ways. Take a look at Tampa Bay. I remember watching that game the other night. They had 2 spies on them. 2, not 1. They didn't have somebody in the middle. They had 2 spies trying to account for his running ability, which opens things up. So just the mere threat of his athleticism creates opportunities for the offense.
Does it just feel like you're walking almost into a different room when you're around the organization these days? I mean, you got 3 fans of the Commanders here in this room that you're talking to right now, actually. And we all know the slog and kind of the dark clouds that hovered for a couple of decades and just the ugliness at times. Winning obviously changes everything, but from Josh Harris to Dan Quinn to Cliff Kingsbury to Jaden Daniels, like so many people have a part in this change. But does it just – what's it like to just see the spirit back in Washington, D.C., quite frankly, and to see this passionate fan base that's kind of been almost in hibernation for a while, being able to just unleash with the passion that they've always had once again?
No, the energy is just unbelievable. I mean, people are so excited for this football team. And not only is it a football team that you can enjoy, but it keeps you on the edge of your seat. The last 5 games have all gone down to the wire. I mean, you couldn't script. Winning games like this, going down to the last minute with really having it being kicked off with a Hail Mary, which you just don't see happen very often in football. Another name that you have to take into consideration is Adam Peters, the general manager. I mean, think about this football team from a Commander standpoint. When the season started, okay, you had an entirely new coaching staff, an entirely new philosophy, a new offense. Defense conceptually is different. Over 60% of the guys that put that Commander uniform on that were announced as starters weren't with the team in the previous year. Such tremendous newness. And I've told people this. It reminds me of the 1981 team that I had a chance to be a part of when Joe Gibbs took over. We had a new coach. We had a new system. We really didn't know one another. We had to grow to know one another. We started that season 0-5. And then once we settled in, we went 8-3, 12-1, 16-3, 11-5. And I think this team has the potential to really build because it's a very young ball club. And Jaden will continue to grow. C.J. Stroud has sort of taken a step back, it looks like, this year. He had a sensational rookie season last year. I just don't see that happening with Jaden. I think he's got that kind of ability to sustain what he's done.
Joe, what would you say the difference is between what you see Jaden Daniels' rookie year to when RG3 burst on the scene his rookie year when they had everybody on fire that 2012 season?
Robert was a great athlete, a great runner. I mean, shoot, he wanted to compete in the Olympics. His throwing, he hadn't really become a polished thrower. It was something that he had to work on and continue to work on and never really had a chance because he got hurt. I think Jaden came right out of college, right out of LSU, throwing the ball really well, in particular the deep ball. I mean, this football team hadn't averaged 20 points a game for years. Now they're 28, close to 29 points a game. And obviously special teams and defense contribute to that. But the offense has been more dynamic. The guys have held on to the ball, which is critical. And Jaden has thrown the ball very well. But I think foundationally he was a better thrower than Robert coming out. And it's not to say that Robert couldn't have been and gotten better as time went on, but he never really had a chance.
Joe, our mutual friend Ricky Thompson told me
my roomie,
told me one time when I asked, like, what is the indicator, like, if you had to pick one thing that's changed about the team in Washington, and he said the one of the biggest things, an ownership decision, obviously, and obviously a municipal decision, but when they moved out of RFK Stadium and into Maryland, it took the heart out of the fan base, because that's really where it was there in D.C. at the RFK site. Now, there's a great possibility they move back there. Would you like to see – I mean, I'm sure Virginia and Maryland are going to try and stop it, but it seems that the momentum is kind of pointing in that direction right now. Is that what most of the ex-players want to see, is back at RFK?
We're just thrilled that they're winning. I mean, I don't – as far as that basically was political, but President Biden signed off on the opportunity for them to have the possibility to be able to use that site because it was federal land. So there was the possibility that they could use that site if in the event they wanted to build a stadium there. Haven't heard what Virginia's had to say or Maryland's had to say about where they possibly might want to put a stadium and if a bid goes in. But I do know that playing down at RFK there, it was special to get to. You're really in the heart of the city. You're in the heart of the Washington, D.C. area. And a lot of the fans got very used to going there. Now, with this particular football team, with this fan base has never seen what's going on this year. It's been 2 decades since they've really had a chance to stand up and consistently for an entire season get excited. Hope is not a strategy. It really isn't. And it was really, I guess, over the last couple of years, we'd win a couple games, go out of the blocks and say, hey, I hope we can keep on going, and then it would fizzle. And really the franchise, there never was a face of the franchise. Really, I think your quarterback needs to be the face of the franchise. And Jaden has certainly fulfilled that for fans. And he's such a wonderful kid. I mean, I watched the piece on Sunday, and they were talking about, him with that young lady who had cancer and going to see her. I mean, what you saw there was the real. He was real. He is real. He was real. And that's Jaden. That's the kind of young man he is. Like I said, his athletic skills are incredible. I mean, Cliff's going to call probably anywhere between 8 to 10 runs just specifically for him in the course of a game. I mean, your quarterback's going to run. That's what we do. That's how they play that game. And in the beginning, everybody worried about getting hurt, but he's wrapped tight, and he's wiry, and he's smart, and he's just downright fun to watch. When he takes a snap, he's a little bit like Patrick Mahomes. You don't know what you're going to get. It's a box of chocolates.
Yeah.
It really is. Mm-hmm. It's just one big box of chocolates.
Joe, you were inducted to the College Football Hall of Fame in 2003. You had a great run at Notre Dame. I know those back-to-back years in the Cotton Bowl, and you got the one against Texas in the 1970 season. Terry Hanratty is also going into the College Football Hall of Fame, who was on that team when you were there. He got injured. You then took over, and the rest is history. Did you know that? And what how exciting to kind of see that come full circle for him?
I just found it out 2 hours ago. That Terry's going into the Hall of Fame, the College Football Hall of Fame. And I think it's so appropriate and so wonderful and such a great honor. I've been a part of it. I've been there since 2003. And I'm sorry it took this long for him to get in, but it's great that he is finally there and being recognized. Had Terry stayed healthy, there probably wouldn't have been a story about Joe Theismann or Theismann, whichever one I am or was, having my name changed. I mean, if Terry hadn't gotten hurt, I would have never had the chance. Because Eric could have chosen 2 seniors over me to play, but he gave me the chance to be able to play quarterback for those games. But, Terry was on his way. He and Jimmy Seymour, they were the talk of the town. They were the combination in college football. And Terry was a Heisman Trophy candidate until the time he got hurt. So it's really great to see him join us in the Hall.
What were your parents' thoughts about when you changed your name?
Oh, it's funny. Well, it's actually my mom and dad were okay. So, if I got a second to tell the story,
Yeah.
if I can, okay. So Roger Baldessari calls me in the office, and I had a really good junior year. And he said, "Joe," he said, "how do you pronounce your last name?" I said, "It's Theismann." He says, "No, it's not. It's Theismann." I said, "No, my last name is Theismann." He says, "No, your last name is Theismann." So I said, "Can I use your phone?" So I picked up the phone. I called my dad back home in New Jersey. I get my dad on the phone. I said, "Dad, I got a question for you." He said, "What's that, Joe?" I said, "How do we pronounce our last name?" Dead silence on the phone. My dad comes on about 30 seconds later. He says, "Are you all right? You're a senior in college. You don't know your last name. What's going on?" I said, "I'll explain it later. Just tell me, how do you pronounce it?" He said, "Theismann." Hung it up, hung the phone up, turned to Raj. I said, "Raj, my last name is Theismann. I know I just got a phone with my dad." He said, "Joe, I want to tell you something. There's a trophy out there called the Heisman Trophy. It goes to the best college football player in the country. We think you have a chance to win that trophy, but we're not just going to count on your athletic ability nor the reputation of the University of Notre Dame, but we think by just simply changing the pronunciation of your last name from Theismann to Theismann, we can help you win that trophy." So my parents were okay, but I called my grandmother. My grandmother was the matriarch of our family because we're German by heritage. So I called my grandmother. She says, "Granny, I got to run something by." She says, "What's that?" I said, "They want to change the pronunciation of our last name from Theismann to Theismann." She says, "I tell you this." She says, "Actually, the correct pronunciation is Theismann, and what they want to do is closer than what we have now." So she was fine with it.
There you go.
I got the blessing from my grandmother.
That's awesome. Hey, I know it's a fun time. Joe, we've had you on at Radio Row at the Super Bowl many times, and we also had you on quite a bit during the eventual journey of RG3 in Washington. Love what you do. Appreciate everything. You've always been great, insightful, and appreciate your opinions along the way, too.
Appreciate it. I hope to see you at Radio Row this year.
We will be there. We will absolutely.
Watching the Commanders go for a Super Bowl.
Would that not be the greatest thing of all time?
Oh, my goodness.
Be. Yeah. Yep.
I won't have any fingers left. I don't have any nails anymore, but I won't have any fingers left.
Well, good luck Monday. Notre Dame and also Ohio State in the college football championship playoff. Great stuff. Appreciate Joe Theismann. Answered a lot of questions that maybe some of you were asking about in the chat, too.